Thank you for trying this demo.
Let me take this thing off. What's up, guys? I thought I'd start this a bit earlier. Welcome to our second live stream. Did one in January. My computer kind of flopped the whole time, but I think I've played around with the settings a bit better now, so shouldn't be having much problem. Tested it a few times, so let me know in the comments as you go.
Thank you for trying this demo.
Yeah, thanks, Silence. If you're experiencing any issues with the dropouts or whatever, it's good. I'm always trying to improve these streams and make them an actual thing. Just been super busy the last month, so we didn't get to one in February, but good to be back. Today I'm just going to be, jumping through. I'm going to be organizing a few samples, and also I'm creating some for a sample pack that we're going to be using on one of our new articles, which will be coming out hopefully later today, actually, because this is the last step and I just got to finish off this sample pack. So yeah, maybe early next week, we'll see, depending on, because we've got mixing for producers at the moment. We're in the middle of that launch, so I'll also be answering any questions about that. What's up, Tricor? Good to see you, man. Yeah, it seems to be okay. I've had a few dropped frames. How does it look to you guys? If you have any problems with the frames or whatever, just let me know. Audio should come through as well from Ableton. But yeah, looks like this episode's gonna be the coronavirus special. It seems like it's gone crazy overnight in the UK, which kind of sucks. But yeah, I think the problem last time, I'll just wait for a few more people to get in, by the way, before we get into it. But I think the problem last time is that my stream was in 1080p and my computer just was not handling it as well as my internet. So yeah, I'm trying 720p, so I know it's not the best resolution for some of you people with like high resolution monitors and stuff, but unfortunately we'll have to do that for now until Australia finally gets better internet. Yeah, mine's alright. I'm on like 4G, so it kind of like is good sometimes, but when a lot of people use it, it's because our fixed line internet options in Australia aren't really great at all. So it kind of sucks, but yeah. What's up, Bargain? What's up, Inverted Popes? Yeah, I heard Colorado's been a bit bad with it as well. Hey, yeah, it's kind of sucks, man. The UK, I reckon they're like 4 weeks behind Italy. So like, what's happening in Italy right now will happen in the UK. Which also, I was actually meant to go to the UK in May, which is in 2 months. So I don't think that's going to be happening now. Tours being cancelled. A lot of artists, like Coachella, got cancelled. Like everything's getting cancelled, which is kind of like, it makes sense. It just sucks that it's getting to that point, And yeah, yeah, cool. Well, I might see if there's a few more people getting into it. Yeah, I might just jump in. So I have made an article on this before about sample organization, which I might link at the end. It's called the Producer's Guide. I'll Google it for you. Guide to sample organization, sample and file organization, I think it is. So I'll quickly link that in here. If you want to give that a read one time, you can. But I'll kind of I'm gonna go through some of the things in here. But like I'm gonna basically be kind of reorganizing my samples because I have a system currently in place, but it's a bit too convoluted. Yeah, Poland, I've heard it's pretty bad across Europe. I mean, because everything's so close to each other, right? Yeah, it sucks. In Australia, it's kind of like still small, but like, yeah, they reckon they reckon 20% of people get it here minimum. Like best case scenario, like it's just inevitable, unfortunately. Someone who hasn't made a song before. Yeah, I'll quickly answer this question. Someone who hasn't made a song before. Look, I mean, the obvious recommendation I would give is to take EDM foundations. And it's not just so I can be like, hey, we want your money, but it actually genuinely like steps you through the process of being like, hey, you know, we are actually going to take you from the process of having nothing to a full completed track, and guiding you through that entire like steps of a process, if that makes sense. Like there's a lot of resources out there that teach you how to do the individual parts of making a song, how to design a bass, how to mix drums, a cool sound design technique, a cool reverb technique. But like in terms of actually going through the process, there's not a whole lot of good quality resources out there. That's why you normally need to pay for them as well, because showing how a song's made from start to beginning isn't like an easy thing to teach. Yeah, so I mean, I know it's just like recommending you buy our course, but it costs money for a reason. Like it is valuable. We've had a lot of people, yeah, get stuff out of it. So definitely would recommend that. But apart from that, like practically just, you know, start dragging even just like samples and loops in. I mean, we use a lot of samples in EDM foundations for that reason, because we want people to get comfortable with the idea of like arranging and completing a track rather than like spending hours relentlessly tweaking in kick drum, which I mean is sometimes necessary if you're going for a particular sound, but like it's not, you know, what am I trying to say? It's not always like the best use of your time. Yeah, man, we like, if you're interested, like we normally have a sale on Easter. So, I can't guarantee or confirm that because we don't have that planned, but we normally have an Easter sale. So EDM foundations will likely go on sale around then. So that's in about a month. Yeah, sweet. But, yeah, back to organizing, and feel free to ask other questions about anything or mixing for producers, our new course as well, which is a little bit more for intermediate producers who are experienced with making music. You can go check that out, edmprod.com/mixing. But I'm gonna be just organizing some samples. So previously what I've done is like I've just had all my drums, percussion, and Foley kind of percussion sounds in this one collection in Ableton. If you guys aren't familiar with Ableton, you can just basically add samples, instruments, plugins, whatever type of file to a collection, and that way you can essentially just like pick your favorite sounds. But as you can see, I've got like way too many here, probably because I've got way too many sample packs. So what I'm gonna do, I think, is I think I'm gonna like start by compiling all of these resources just into the one, because basically I want to start from scratch, and it's kind of a shame that I've used all of them up, so I don't have a spare one where I can kind of temporarily store things, because I don't want to lose a lot of these sounds and I want to kind of keep them all in one place. So what I think I'm gonna do is I might clean out, which is the emptiest one? Probably this other resources one, hey. I'm going to quickly go through this and just like kind of split it out. Yeah, but I actually kind of want to keep a lot of these sounds because these are some of my favorite sounds, so I kind of want to keep them in here. Damn it. What am I going to do? Alright, I might put all these drum loops in the drums one, just because normally I like to keep my drum loops separate to my drum one shots, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, if you're not in the Facebook group, definitely do that. Aside from production, how do you find your stage name? A lot of people. This is actually a really good topic. Sorry, I'm like going back and forth between what I'm doing, and answering your questions, but I want to answer your questions while you guys are here. Essentially, like stage name, there's a lot of creativity involved with it, and I think you need to find something that's unique. But it's also important to consider how it functionally works in the world, because of the landscape that the music industry works now is more like, people are going to be searching your name online. They're going to be searching you on Instagram. They're going to be searching you on Spotify. And how people discover is through typing your name. Right. I mean, how your name is spelt is probably more important than how your name is pronounced. But at the same time, you need to consider how your name is pronounced. So, like, for example, someone like Flume, right? It's like, the reason his name is so good is because it's simple, like it's really, really simple, like, but it's also a unique word. Like, it's not it's a plain English word if you're not familiar with it. I think it refers to like a surfing term, but it's not a very commonly used word. So it's easy to understand, but it's not gonna get, when you search for Flume, I mean, now it's gonna just come up with Flume, but like, you're not competing with all of these other search terms in terms of like when someone's Googling your name. It's also easy to say in conversation, and like it's the kind of word that when you pronounce it, you know exactly how it's going to be spelt. Like if you're having like weird like pronunciations, that's like the problem with some people who like have like homophone kind of names, where it's like who's a good example of that? I can't exactly remember, which is actually kind of ironic because that's kind of what I'm trying to say. What's up, in better? How you going, man? Yeah, it's the idea is that you want it to be that balance between uniqueness but catchiness. So like start from a creative point. Like start by like, okay, I want a really cool name that really reflects what I do. But then you might need to kind of tailor it to the landscape. And obviously, if someone's already taken it, then you don't want to take a name that's already commonly used or used by someone else, because that's just going to cause problems down the track. I had a friend who produced under the name AK, and he had to change his name because a label sued him, like was threatening to sue him or something. And it's because they had like pretty much the same name on their label. Yeah, Deadmau5 is an interesting one. Hey, like that was kind of funny that everyone used to pronounce it Deadmau5. I did that. Like everyone did that because it was like, how do I do that? No one was familiar with that like leet speak. I guess like the general public wasn't familiar with leet speak. Like only like a select few internet dwellers kind of knew what that meant at the time. But it kind of played into his brand a little bit. Like he's kind of like, oh, like it's Deadmau5, and it kind of became a bit of a meme for a while. Like, but everyone obviously found out it's Deadmau5. But yeah, that's a bit of advice there. What's your favorite way to start a new song when feeling a little writer's block? Honestly, like I just like change it up. Like change up my writing style. Like for example, if you always start with drums, I mean, there's a million and one things you can do to overcome that kind of feeling of like resistance is what I like to call it, because that's what it is. It's, like, writer's block is this resistance to writing, right? And it's written about in a few books. There's a good book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. We've recommended it like a billion times, I think, on the podcast and whatever. We've all read it here at EDM Prod, and it's great because it talks about basically this like fundamental problem with like creative people is they face this resistance, and that's what writer's block essentially is, right? It's this resistance to creating, because creating is like a deliberate action that you need to do. So I always kind of like look for inspiration in a different place, like, and then when you kind of open your mindset to where inspiration can come from, I find that it's very easy to start to overcome writer's block. I think a bigger part of it though, probably like what I'm talking about is like if you always start with drums, try starting with like the melodies or something, or maybe write a different genre. But I think a bigger part of it is a lot of the resistance comes from this fear of like I have to make a good song, or I have to expect a certain result, and I think you should make music without expecting results. I think you should try just to create, I guess, for the sake of creating and not worry about the outcome. I mean, we all want to worry about the outcome because it's like, I want to make a cool song and stuff. But I think focus on like, okay, I'm just like taking one step at a time. I'm just adding a kick drum. I'm adding a snare. I'm adding some hats in. Oh, okay, I don't like this kick drum. I'll change it. Okay, I don't like this hat. I'll change it. I think this will be cool. Like, now I feel like a nice bass line might go underneath this. Okay, cool. Now I kind of want to add some nice chords, or like, oh, actually a vocal sample would be really cool on that. Like, if you view it as in like just taking one step at a time, or going one step back, one step forward, one step in a different direction, you'll build a better track that way, I find, because then you're not focused on like, I have to make a cool track. I'm just following what my, what I'm going with, what the track's calling for, and I'm going with the process. I think being process focused over then the result focus is definitely helpful for overcoming like resistance in writer's block and all that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, Marshmallow. Marshmallow is like funny because it's like so similar to what its actual word is, but it's just like one letter different, which is kind of creative. I think it's the ones who go like really weird, like they change all the I's to a Y, and it's like no one's gonna be able to know like that spelling. Whereas Marshmallow's like play on words, but it's still kind of catchy. Yeah, Res is a simple. You can pretty much guess how it's gonna be spelled as well. Like, maybe someone's going to spell it with one Z, but like I almost can guarantee if I put R-E-Z. Oh, it's like a game. Okay. Well, that kind of defeats the purpose. But like, you type in, let's say, okay, I couldn't find Res. Okay, Res music. Yeah, all right. Well, it doesn't seem that Google wants to find Res, but I mean, like, 90% of people are gonna find Res, like by just realizing it's an extra Z. It's very catchy. It's simple, and it's gonna be able to be reproduced well, and people are gonna understand how to talk about it. So, yeah, and it's actually her last name, which is cool. That's interesting about Avicii, yeah. Name was already taken. Yeah, sometimes like it's like subtle play on words, but don't just go like really creative with it. Yeah, I actually really think that like changing an A to a V thing, that's so overdone. Like, please don't do that. It's kind of cringy now. That's just me. Like, maybe it's just me, but yeah, don't do the whole V thing. Yeah, my 2 cents. It's also really dumb. Like, that's exactly why I wouldn't choose it. And it's also just kind of like a trend name. Like, one person started doing that. Like, I can't think of the first person who did that. And then everyone just started doing it. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Kygo. Yeah, you can tell what makes a great name. Unless you're gonna be making like really like left field music, which kind of like some names work. Like, for example, if you're making like a good example is like Stars of the Lid, which is like a post rock band. That's a really weird name, but at the same time it's kind of catchy. But it's not simple. That's the only thing. But it kind of maybe works for their niche genre. So consider the like context of your artist name is also important. Like if you're wanting to get that mass market success, then it has to be simple. But if you don't really care about that, you can kind of get away with more creative usage. What do indie record labels look for? How does one thing get noticed? Indie labels look for one thing, and that's good music. And the reason that is because the only reason they're an indie label is because they care pretty much just about the music. If you're a big label, they care about it a lot more because they really want your brand to be on point. They really want your like other extra musical things, so things outside of your music, elements to be intact, and they want that to be tight. So that's why like a big label's not always easy to get signed to, and they normally want you to have some sort of like street cred before you get signed there. But indie labels, on the other hand, they just really want good music that's suited to their label. Like if you have those two things, you got a good chance. I mean, obviously it's helped by the fact if you have a good network and someone who can refer you onto the label directly, like that will increase your chances. So like my recommendation, if there's a particular label you like, maybe like become with friends with one of the artists on that label. Like just message them on SoundCloud saying, hey, I really like your release on this label, blah blah blah. Or not SoundCloud, probably Instagram's better. I mean, depending on where they're active. Good music and music that suits the label. Like I've sent music that's good to the wrong labels before, and they just don't care because it just doesn't suit their vibe. I mean, a lot of the time they'll say it's close, but it's not quite what we're looking for. That could be either because your music's still not quite as good. That's my 2 cents on indie labels from experience. Do you have any tips on creating a sample pack, normalizing all the drum shots, and naming multiple files at a time extension? I'm not sure what you mean at the end there. Batch normalization and naming. I mean, I haven't done batch normalization. I mean, I'm sure you can easily like do a terminal or command line thing to do batch naming. I haven't done that. I normally just do it manually, which is probably not the best way, but I'll just normally copy paste the same file format and like say it's kick 1, kick 2, kick 3. Which is what I'm going to do now. So because I'm actually going to be making sample packs if I get time. I mean, I'd rather be answering your questions first, but any tips on getting started with a remix? I'll get back to your other sample pack question when I get into sample pack stuff, but so tips with getting started on a remix. I get overwhelmed staring at a project full of stems. 1 hour track based on remixing. Yeah, that's fair. I probably could get around to that. I mean, I'm not sure if you're enrolled in like EDM Foundations Complete, but there is a remixing masterclass attached to that. Generally, my rule of thumbs is like I might have some remix stems somewhere around here. Maybe. I think it might be in here. Yeah. So like, let me I can save this and then open a new one. So like I got stems somehow for Earth, Wind and Fire September. Don't ask me how I got them. I don't know if these are like recreated. So hold command enables him to drag them into multiple tracks. Let's just put them all like that. So the first thing is don't feel the need to use every single stem. Like, let me oh my gosh, let me chuck a utility on the master there. Jeez, that was loud. So like a lot of the time, and we go over this in the remix masterclass, is like sometimes you might just want to use the vocal. Maybe like don't feel the need to use the drums, especially if like oftentimes a big part of a remix is replacing the drums, maybe replacing the same instruments with different sounds. Like, so these keys, I could extract the MIDI. So like, you know, drag this onto a MIDI track. Yeah. Why is it not wanting to do that? Come on. Maybe you have to load an instrument on first. Like, let's load like a like Spitfire Audio Labs, like piano. Say I want to replace it with this or something. Harmony. This might take a bit. Yeah, screw that. I'm just gonna do like a little section. By the way, these stems aren't warped yet, so that's probably something I would look at doing in practice. But for the sake of showing you what I'm doing here, is like, I'm just gonna show you this. So yeah, like if the MIDI's not provided with the actual stems, you can like use this audio to MIDI feature in. I don't know if other DAWs have it. I think some do. But normally it's a bit inaccurate and you might need to go in and tweak it a bit, but you can get 90% of the way there. The other option is like to process the stem itself and like add some cool processing to the original audio, kind of like sample the audio from that as well. But yeah, the key is like don't use all the stems. So like, so that's like kind of alright. You know, you'd spend a bit of time adjusting some of those. Like, you know, might make these ones longer. See, it's actually like pretty alright for getting some general kind of sounds down. And I find sometimes personally the imperfections in the sound are actually kind of cool, like especially when you can like choose the sound and then you can tweak the MIDI and then you can add extra processing and stuff. So that's another thing. These particular stems, I think it's so loud because of the fact that they have like full versions with the bass and the drums and different elements removed. So I think that's probably why it was so loud before. It's my bad. Yeah. So hopefully that like is a cool technique. Just delete the tracks, like delete all these. Delete what I don't need. I don't need the guitar. I don't need the drums. Maybe what are these DIY extras? Maybe I want to like use that one in like some parts. You don't have to use it in all the parts. Maybe I want to process the bass differently. Like just use like the sub. Like basically use the original stem, but like process it differently. Like you could make it more like an EDM kind of bass. Use like the ultra low extender. You know, like this is just really me messing around at this point, but you know, just get creative is the idea. Move the bass around. One cool, actually, I'm gonna get off topic now. I'll get back to the next question soon. The next EDM Foundations one, it'll be next month, in April. Yeah. I'm just getting into a cool bass processing technique I learned from a drum and bass producer the other day named Willem. If you've got like you could use AutoPan to do this, but I'm gonna use Tremolator. You can like use tremolo on bass to like get this really cool wobble effect. Crank. Maybe I'll like remove this. Obviously, this isn't synced to the rhythm because the tempo's out, but if it was, like more like 120. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just messing around now. Yeah, that's a few ideas. See, like, that just got taken away then by a cool, like, idea, and I was like, oh, cool, I could do something with that, even though it was, like, not that great. But, like, you could go. How we knew love was here to stay. Yeah. Then I might add, like, an extra drum loop on, like, a snap. I don't know, like, maybe I'll warp them up to a different tempo, like, make a drum and bass remix. I don't know. Like, yeah, so that's a few ideas. How did you learn to DJ? I want to learn. I'm going for a DDJ 400. Yeah, look, unfortunately, DJing was one of those things that I learned via YouTube, and it took me way too long to learn. First, I think it's cool that you're getting Pioneer gear. I think the closest thing you can get to Pioneer, I think, yeah, DDJ 400 is good because you can use it with a record box. I mean, ideally, like, if you're going to, like, the closest thing to a club standard, you'd be getting something like an XDJ, which is, like, standalone, meaning you can just organize all of your tracks in record box, but then move over to, like, basically put it on a USB as if you were going to play it like a club or something like that. But, yeah, as for where to start, I think it's a good controller to learn on. Pioneer is, like, pretty industry standard, so it's good, and record box is probably good to use because you can still organize all of your tracks in there and then still prepare USBs for when you maybe go play somewhere else. So I think good choice. Learning to DJ, yeah, look, honestly, the best thing you could probably do, and I can't really recommend it, any particular thing, is, like, get a course on DJing. I mean, unfortunately, it's kind of a bit aside from what we do here at EDM Prod, because we're mostly focused on production, obviously. So we're not going to be bringing out a DJing course anytime soon. But there are some good ones out there. I just can't think of any names. Do your research, find a good course. And the main thing is just to, like, be continually practicing, like with production. DJing, I find, is, you can learn it a bit faster than in production for sure. Like, I learned to DJ probably, like, to get good, DJing probably took me 6 months to a year. And you could do that a lot faster if you have the right information and the right, like, practice routine. The main thing, I mean, for most DJs you need to learn is just beat matching. And I think learning with the right settings, because the problem is when I learned DJing is that you have to learn to not use certain features because they can kind of act as a crutch for DJing, and then it makes certain things hard. So you don't want to, like, basically you don't want to make it too easy for yourself. Like, learning beat matching by ear is very valuable, and I don't just say that because you should, because it makes you a real DJ or anything. I'm like, no, sometimes the sync button doesn't work, and sometimes the sync button ruins your mix because it hasn't lined up with the beat grid properly and stuff. So yeah, I would say learn with, like, that's why a course is so invaluable, because it'll teach you to learn the right way, and it will save you a lot of time down the track. Like, honestly, having someone around you who can give you that information, like whether it's an indirect person like on a course or a direct mentor, would be probably ideal. But yeah, that would be my recommendation for learning how to DJ. And at the end of the day, DJing is about focusing on good track selection. So no matter what technical skills you learn, it's all about track selection. That is, like, the primary thing, that, like, makes you a good DJ. So yeah, what MacBook monitor do you use for production? I use a MacBook Pro 13-inch. It's got 16 gigs of RAM, like an i7 processor, I think, or maybe it's an i5. I don't even know. It's an i7, yeah. It's like a slightly bigger one. Like PCIe SSD. Definitely get an SSD for production. Do not get a spinning disk hard drive in 2020 for production. unless it's like for storing like long-term assets if you're building a PC. But like if you're getting a laptop, just get an SSD. It runs your whole system way faster. Yeah. That's what I use. Many people would like to build a desktop. I get it. I like portability. I use this around, out and about a lot. I like taking it to other people's studios. I like doing stuff on the road. I like flexibility. I don't like having my setup just limited to home. That's just a personal preference. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. My MacBook's like 2014. I think it's late 2014. It's old. Like I probably need to start thinking about replacing it soon. I think I need to replace it this year sometime. So yeah. Let me delete all these. Yeah, I think I'll probably get a 15-inch MacBook Pro next, or like the new I think it's a 16-inch one. I think they just came out with. It's like an actual good Pro one. Like it's got good features and stuff, unlike some of the other newer MacBook Pros. So I'm probably gonna opt for that one, even though it's like hella expensive. Thankfully now I can actually justify that expense because, like, if you're on the last live stream, you'll see like it's a struggle to sometimes run things, and like this doesn't have a dedicated graphics card, which the other ones do, the bigger models do. So that will help me a lot for like live streaming and recording production stuff for EDM prod. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a bit of help. Yeah, I'm gonna continue trying to organize these samples, but feel free to ask more questions. I'll probably stick around for about another half an hour, 45 minutes, just depending on how many people end up rocking up. But yeah, I'm gonna try and figure out the best way to. Yeah, I think like what I use this source materials collections for is I tend to sample some of this stuff and like make it kind of like chop it up into different things, but I use my sound sorter for already kind of chopped things, but I might just put them all in that folder. Yeah, sweet. And then I can do that with this too. And then I can remove the blue one from here, which is 5 and 5. So now there should be nothing in here. Cool. By the way, like in Ableton, the shortcuts, like you can right click on and choose a collection for it to go in, but you can also use the colors sort of thing. So I'm going to call this one temp, just because I might, actually what I might do is, just for organization's sake, I might move these all into my temp one, remove the drum loops one. I'll call this drum loops. I'll call this temp, just so I know the last one is my temporary folder. Yeah, so what I'll do here is I think I will now move all of these sounds into my temp folder. So yeah, yep. I'm gonna, Ableton is struggling, so I'm gonna go temp. Cool. So that should be all. The last one, gray. For consistency's sake, I'm just going to do it again. Yeah, sick. Because then what I'll... Whoop. Some of them did it, some of them didn't, for whatever reason. There we go. Now I can hopefully remove these from this one. Oh. Okay. I don't think Ableton is liking doing this many samples at once. So what I'm going to do is just going to clear all colors and set them all to temp. And hopefully everything should be set to gray now. Cool. And then I should go in here and it should be empty. Cool. So I'm going to call this drums. Device. I'm going to call this plugins. I think I'm going to do the same with my FX sounds. I'm going to put them in the temp folder. Yeah, it's just like a Mario sample, lol. I'm going to clear. I'll just make them all not effects. Make them all temporary. If anyone's getting in here and wondering what I'm doing, I'm organizing my samples better and answering your questions. Yeah, 2019 15-inch MacBook Pro. Yeah, totally worth it. That's what I like. You can totally get away these days with a Windows system. That being said, like, I'm not hating on Windows. I've been both sides of the camp. I've been pro Windows. I have been pro Mac. I worked at Apple for like a year and a half, so I can't be anti-Mac, and I own one. But Windows are like machines are very capable these days, especially like running 10.1. Like, they've really upped their game. I don't think you need to own a MacBook to do production, and a lot of bigger producers still use Windows. It wasn't like 2012 where you basically needed a MacBook Pro to do production well, because there's so many glitches and kinks on Windows systems that you could produce, and I did, but it was just like not an ideal circumstance, and it was a lot harder. But now, like, it's really level. What's up, Tom? And Earl, do you have a default set of drums? I start fresh every time, but I probably should, and this is kind of why I am doing what I'm doing now. I had too many samples to choose from, and what I ended up doing then is like choosing a different drum sample every time, but then I kind of had two variants of a sound, which is good in some ways. Like, I guess my production technique could have sort of brought things back together, but like having more consistent sounds is probably a bit more ideal, and like limiting yourself. Like, there's so many samples, even just in these ones here. Yeah, it's crazy. What have I got here? Yeah, I've got like, I'm gonna remove that. Make that 1, make that 6. So what I'm gonna do here is start to like build out some of my favorite packs. It's a lot of the reason I'm doing this is because my sound has changed. I'm making like a lot more drum and bass these days, which is different to like other genres I've been making in the past. I'm gonna also name these all capitals just for organization's sake. So I'm kind of just wanting a fresh start in a lot of ways. I'm gonna call this one favorites for now, just because it's like some alright sounds, but I'm gonna go through them because there's not a whole lot going on there. Yeah, like, I totally get it, bargain, but like, yeah, honestly, like, I was in a similar boat when I used to use Windows as well. Like, I did that a lot, but I find like just owning, if you can't afford things, like, it's probably easy for someone like me to say, but just use what you've got. And I find like when you get to the point where you can afford plugins, then it makes it a whole lot easier. to appreciate them and to use them to the best of their ability. Like, I had this phase where I had all these plugins and then I just did not know how to use them. And then what I did was essentially delete most of them and then just stuck with a lot of my stock plugins in Ableton. And I got good at just using what tools I had that came with the door and realized how powerful they actually were. And then when I started to get plugins and stuff like that, I actually had a use for them and I actually saw like a reason why I needed them rather than just getting them because I saw my favorite producer need them and use them and stuff like that. I mean, it's very circumstantial. And yeah, a lot of VSTs are Windows exclusive. There are like ways you can get around that, like, but it's still really clunky. I get it. But at the same time, like if you're worried about like Deep Blue Tape Stop, it's like there are really other good alternatives. Like there's a great Max for Live one if you're in Ableton. I'm not sure if you are. I'm sure there's another VST out there. There's one called like Pitch Drop, and it's similar. Like it's just a little, you activate it and you resume. Yeah. So I mean, I get the struggle. Like I definitely had a process of like when I went from Windows to Mac. Like, oh man, I can't use all these plugins. Like there was this really cool bundle of like effects plugins, like analog kind of modeled ones that I got for free from this company called Variety of Sound, and none of them worked on Mac, which kind of sucked. And he doesn't really update his plugins that much anymore. He's the guy responsible for like a lot of the TDR plugins are done in like combination with the TDR Tokyo Dawn Labs ones. Variety of Sound is the company I was talking about. So the Slick EQ is kind of a cool analog model EQ I use sometimes, and it's free. I also have this one, which I literally never use, which I probably should just delete. It's like a mastering compressor, but like I never use it. It was free as well though. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, let me get back to I'll continue going through all this stuff. What's in here? Yeah, so like what I'm gonna do now is like I have these favorites and I'm gonna start to like put them in the folders that I like. And then I'll remove it from the other ones. So I'll have like each one of these just really probably just what should I do here? The sounds one is hard because there's so many good sounds in here, but like a lot of them are a bit crap. I'll probably do these ones a different time. Probably what I'm going to need to do there is like, because these ones I'm happy to kind of start from scratch, but there's a lot of sounds in this folder which I'm like, I've gone through and found them and they're kind of sick. So I might have to figure that out. Yeah. That's a weird sound. I'm not sure if I like that. I'm just going to clear that. I think I wanted to like chop it into something. Yeah, I kind of like that sound there. I think I also need to like, what I'll end up doing is using one of these folders for like separating out effects and Foley. I think was a big part of it. In fact, I probably should just call this one Foley. I'm also going to save all these plugins in my favorites one for now, because that's what I'll probably end up using for plugins. So what am I going to do? Just go to 6. So yeah, sorry, this is a bit of like a boring process maybe for some people, but like this is just like kind of some of the more tedious work that sometimes happens when you are a producer and you have a system where everything's a bit messy. And then I'll use one of these for Foley and one of these for effects, because I had a effects folder which had everything in it for like that kind of stuff, and like sometimes you just want like a good sweep. And stuff like that. So Yeah. And then I might like make these. I'm going to also move all these into the temp folder, because a lot of these also probably could go without being in here. And then I might make this one into like a favorite presets one. Yeah. So I might, drums, favorite drum samples, favorite effect samples, favorite Foley samples, favorite like sound / audio samples, like melodic harmonic stuff, favorite like instrument presets, so serum patches, Ableton racks, or maybe even audio effect racks. I'll use this for like, I'll probably end up using this for like plugins that I use a lot, and then I might use this last one for something. But yeah, so like this is like Foley in my mind, whereas it's not really an effect. Yeah, so like just the reason I'm changing this as well is just I've noticed my workflow suffers when I have it organized in such a way that I did. Yeah, so I've just kind of had to go through this unfortunately long, tiresome process of elimination to figure out the best workflow for me. Yeah, honestly, like let's have a look at my sample packs folder. Over the years, like you can see, the dates. Some of these are pretty old. I think one thing I want to do as well is if I organize these by date sorted, or actually date modified, probably should do it in Ableton. I mean, not in Ableton, in Finder, because you can do it by the date you added them into the folder, or downloaded them or whatever. There's a lot of I really kind of want to organize these by year and stuff like that. I basically want to get to a point where I only put a pack in here when I download it. I go through the process, add anything I like to it, and then I just leave it in here as like the original source. Because nowadays I end up just also, this is my splice one. So this is like sample packs that I've like downloaded, like free ones or full ones I may have purchased. And this one's for like splice samples. Sounds is like weird non-sample pack sounds, like maybe something I snatched off YouTube, or like I downloaded some video game sounds, or just stuff that doesn't really make sense to be in a sample pack folder because they're just kind of on a collection of random sounds. It's a bit messy, as you can see as well here. It's on purpose, like it's just kind of like the dumping ground for weird sounds. I also have a music for sampling, which is for like completed pieces of musical acapellas that are like I would go and sample potentially, which I need to update a bit. I got instrument racks, which are just linked from Ableton. I got my desktop here, which I'm constantly adding and removing, because when I'm going to remove it now. What I end up doing half the time is like sometimes I'll download something and I just want to test it out before moving it into a folder, and I add them. But I like to keep this as clean as possible. Down here, I've also like got my main directory user library here. I put everything into the Ableton user library, like all my production stuff. The only thing that doesn't live in there is obviously plugins, which have to be installed in a certain directory, and some of the presets aren't in here, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's what I kind of do just for organization. I used Loop Cloud for a bit, which is like a kind of similar to Splice, but it's like got its own software and stuff that you can like do. I got a bunch of samples from there, but like I don't have the subscription anymore, so I need to like organize those samples into a better format. Where can you find my music? Let me link it down here. So historically, I have made a lot of like hip hop-ish electronic stuff. I made a bit of house for a while under another alias, and also on my Artsea account. And now I'm kind of like making a lot of drum and bass, which is actually what I started with as a producer. I started making drum and bass. So it's like Liquid. So if you know what Liquid drum and bass is, it's kind of like more chilled out version of drum and bass, atmospheric, soulful side of things. So I got a few tracks up on there as well, and I got an EP coming out in April, which you can check out soon. Yeah, I do a lot of YouTube digging. One cool hack to avoid copyright issues is, say you want to sample like an acapella from a song, and you don't really care too much about the quality of that acapella. It's more just for like chopping up vocally or samples or whatever. One thing you can do is like just YouTube singers who are like singing covers of songs. Like some random person with like 200 views who's sung like some incredible cover of some song or like whatever. And yeah, I find like that tends to be a gold mine for samples on YouTube. Not sure how legit it is, so I can't recommend it. Like, you go do it, but like I've found that's a really cool way of like sampling without having to worry as much about copyright claims and stuff like that. But also there's just a bunch of royalty free stuff on Splice these days. I mean, yeah, a lot of the stuff is overused, but if you use like the random searching algorithm on Splice, you can find a lot of the lesser used samples, because there's so much on Splice. It's like there are definitely samples on there that have likely been downloaded very few times, or at least even if they've been downloaded, they haven't been used a whole lot. So yeah. But yeah, back to this. I'm not sure whether I'm gonna like add full packs here. Sometimes I may, depending. Certain packs might actually be beneficial to be in there, but I might not yet. Let me go through this one and just, yeah, that's kind of like, I'd say Foley. That's a really weird sound though. I might put that in the presets one. This is like one of my staples. Yeah, I don't really like that sound, to be honest. What would I put that under? I feel like I'd put that under like maybe drums. I kind of think that's like a percussion. Maybe I'll like put that under presets. It's kind of cool. Yeah, I like. Once again, Foley. That also may be effects. Sometimes I'll use multiple like collections if I think it could be used in either. I don't know why I have so many samples like this. That's really weird. Anyway. This one can stay in here. This is cool. It's kind of like a inspiration Max for Live device. You can like click on it and it gives you cool ideas. Use longer sustained notes, like misuse your tools, use short loops, like that. That's really cool. If like, once again, if you're stuck in writer's block, I think this is free as well. Yeah, it's free. Use a sample, like add distortion, overdrive, unfamiliar plugin, like stuff like that. I like it. Yeah, nah, I probably am fine. Thanks. I don't even know what half these devices are. I don't even remember adding them. Yeah, it's like some preset from some Max for Live device I downloaded. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I might like keep it in the presets one for now. See, this is like, that's an effect, right? Like I would use that as a riser. It's an effect. Nah. Yeah, okay. I probably have a use for that somewhere. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna get rid of that. Get rid of that. Probably. Get rid of that. It's like loaded up so it's a bit cleaner. Yeah, see, that's like probably more of an effect, but it could also be Foley. Yeah. Same with this one. That's weird. I don't know what I would do there. Sorry if these are like a bit too loud for you, by the way. That's like, yeah, I would just keep that as a sound. I'm gonna have to go through that sounds folder anyway at one point. Maybe I'll like. Probably put that as Foley. Yeah, nah. Yeah, this is a cool sound. I love putting like really weird vocoded samples like this into like granulators and adding a bunch of reverb. Sick. I don't know. When I was making a lot of house, I used to use this swing preset a lot. To be honest, I probably should just put it in my default Ableton set and then like use it when I need to, rather than having it up here. Actually, I should just do that. Yeah. Oh well, I'll do it later. Famous last words. How we doing? Sorry, I'll get back to some of your questions. Subbed a channel called. Oh wait, hang on. Yeah. Remember Marshmallow got sued over a sample, I think. Yeah, like probably. It honestly, like the way it's heading, it's gonna change soon. Like there was this great video that these lawyers / musicologists / technology guys, they wrote an algorithm that like wrote every melody ever, and they uploaded it to the public domain. So technically, they've copyrighted every single melody possible to kind of prove a point that copyright law is going to inevitably keep running into these problems because if you look at it from a mathematical standpoint, there's a finite number of melodies you can write. And by the same logic, there's a finite number of sounds you can make because it's just ones and zeros in the digital realm. So the idea is like that this song is like, there's this one Katy Perry song like that she had a similar melody to, and it was like, but it was actually still 2 notes different. The court still thought it was too similar, and she got sued like $2.8 million or something, which is ridiculous. So yeah, it's stupid. Copyright law is silly. Yeah, I don't know like if it was. Yeah, I don't know about that specific case, but yeah. I subbed a channel called Terminal Passage that does daily episodes of obscure funk. Yeah, there's a cool few like resources like that you can use, and like obviously sampling from vinyl if that's your thing. How do you think about compression when you use it? How much? See a bargain, by the way. How do you think about compression? When do you use it and how much? Yeah, look, it's a tough question to answer because it's really, really contextual. But one thing to consider with electronic music is that compression, a lot of the sounds are very like dynamically consistent anyway because like synthesizers are very precise. So like the reason compression was used back in the day is because recorded instruments had such really weird dynamics that you kind of need to control them. But digital sounds don't have that as much. I think it's still applicable though, and it's still necessary in some ways. Like it's more if you're using samples of recorded instruments and stuff like that, or like drum samples, that compression is really handy. I think one thing compression is good for in electronic music is multiband, because you can really squash sounds and like it's almost as an aesthetic thing rather than like a technical use. And that's what OTT is, right? It's just a preset that just squashes the living daylights out of a sound. Then you blend it in and it just gives it this aesthetic of like absolute craziness. But that's the aesthetic. And it doesn't really work with normal compression because you can't dial that in on a specific band. The reason multi-band compression sounds so good is you can not only just compress the whole thing, but you're treating each band like its own sound and you're compressing just that. So you can squash the highs, you can squash the lows, and you can squash the mids, maybe not as much. And the OTT preset eases back a bit on the mids because otherwise it can make it sound too unnatural. But at the same time, OTT's job isn't to sound natural, right? So Yeah, and compression, always ease back on it. Like, it's easy to over compress and make your mix sound bad. So I'd err on the side of using it less than more. The new mixing course, will it help with bass heavy music? Absolutely. And in fact, if you listen to some of the songs with like, if some of you don't know, we worked with Cosmo, we worked with Enama, who's signed to like Lane 8's label. We worked with Disco Fries, who've worked with like Tiesto and that kind of thing. We've worked with who else? Rios, who's like signed to Proximity. I think he's got a track on Spinnin' or something as well. So these guys like all do really good like mix downs, and I mean they're not making bass heavy music, but really a lot of these things are quite applicable because it's all about cleaning it up and that extra punchiness and maximizing loudness. So I would honestly say it's extremely beneficial for any type of like EDM. I've been making a lot of drum and bass, and like none of the tracks are a drum and bass track in the thing, but like I've learned so much from this mix down course, like going through it and editing the videos and testing the videos and whatever. So 100% will help with bass heavy music. Yeah. Cool. I'll finish this off and then I'll pretty much wrap up soon because I've been going over an hour now. But yeah, while I'm still like finalizing a few things with organizing these samples here, didn't really get around to much of the sample creation process, unfortunately, but we will get to that next time. Yeah. Just let me know in the comments while I'm just tidying the rest of this up. Yeah, I don't like that. That's kind of cool. Oh yeah, that's cool. See, that's like an effect, right? Like that's what I would use that for. I'd go to that folder and I'd use that as like a cool like sweep sort of thing. This is a really cool. Oh man. So I don't know if you guys know who Lego Welt is. Where's our drum samples? Let's like find a loop in here, right? So like if you drag in a loop, say for example, turn that off. See, it makes everything sound like it's on tape, and it's actually really, really good. And it's all Ableton plugins. So Lego Welt made that. It's really cool. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. It's like a cool way of adding like that lo-fi grit to a sound. It does cut off a lot of the high end, unfortunately, which you can actually change in the rack there. But sometimes that's what you're going for in that. Yeah, that can go. So that's in the sounds folder now, right? Yeah. Cool. So that should be just now all plugins, right? Yeah. So these are like my favorite ones, which I also need to go through and like rejig. Yeah. But now the process begins of like going through my so these are already curated samples and like having a second round of curation essentially is what I'm going to be doing. Same with this sounds folder. How many? I wonder if I could figure out how many samples there are in this by like right clicking and see what it says. No, it's a lot though, unfortunately. Yeah, so like a lot of these I might end up using to make samples out of because a lot of these have potential, but they just like aren't great. So I think I'll probably like keep this as like a source material folder. And like use it to make and adjust to other samples so I can like make them my own. Because like for example, this sample, it's a kind of cool, but it's got all this background noise. It's got some low end. It's got some harsh frequencies. So I'm a big fan of like making your samples beforehand and sounds beforehand, and doing minimal tweaking in the process. Yeah. Yeah. So at least I've kind of cleaned this up a bit though now. Yeah, I've got some alright Foley samples here, which I'd actually use. Got some alright effects here. Yeah, and I can like start to go through. What I'm gonna do now is like start to go through my samples and actually like make them. But yeah. I think I'll pretty much end it there though for now. I think we've been going quite a bit. People are starting to drop off anyway. So, yeah. If you guys have any last questions, let me know now. Apart from that though, I'll just wait a bit, and then if not, we'll end it up. We'll finish it up. Sorry, English is hard. Yeah, let me know like what you guys want to see on the stream next time. Otherwise, like I'm just gonna be doing cool things that I think you guys will get benefit from, answering questions about our courses or whatever things you guys want. Really, any general production stuff. I'm gonna aim to do one of these once a month. Yeah, no worries, man. Thank you for being around. Thank you for sticking around the whole time as well. Glad you got something out of it. Yeah, and let me know if the quality was good. I know like the downscaling, unfortunately, of my video is a bit blurry. I might try and fix that, because now it's kind of like I've like to see more lo-fi stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Like I'd be down to that. I mean, that's all of my aesthetic is like, I guess, more of a lo-fi gritty aesthetic. Make a track from start to finish. Yeah, I might do that. Only problem is that I'm just worried my computer won't be able to handle the phase where I get to a final track on stream, but we can test it out one time. I'll probably create some more 1 hour builds in the future as well. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Awesome, guys. Cool. Well, I'll see you all in the next live stream or in the Facebook group or wherever. I'll leave the mixing course link in the comments if you guys are interested and want to check that out. It's only open for about another day, so make sure to get enrolled while you can. All the information you know is on the page there. So sweet as, guys. I will see you all next time.